The only thing is, so we were talking before you got out here that in one of our previous episodes, we mentioned that Ty had seen Smile 2 and that I hadn't seen it yet. Well, since recording that, since posting that and everything, I've actually gone and seen Smile 2.
Oh, okay.
We sat the other night, you and PJ and I, and we rewatched Smile because I hadn't seen it since theaters. Did you? You had seen that before, though, right?
I did. It was one of those, like, in the beginning of us watching all of this stuff, it's like post Evil Dead, but pre, like, Texas Chainsaw.
Right.
And I'm just kind of sitting around bored and trying to find something to watch. So then, you know, when you find a new food that you didn't think that you liked, and then you find a new food and you're like, oh, no, I actually do really like this. And it opens a whole new section of menus at restaurants for you.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was like, well, now I can scroll through Shudder or whatever and try to find something. So scrolling through it, and it was Smile. Like, well, that's creepy because it's that face. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of creepy. And then I watched the trailer, and then it's creepier and creepier and creepier. I put it on. I'm like, this isn't that bad. And I'm alone, and it wasn't too bad. But the problem is that I watched the trailer first.
Oh, yes.
Because it's just every fucking thing in that movie is in the fucking trailer.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate with a lot of trailers in general, and a lot of horror trailers especially. Is so much is just spoiled with the trailers there. I was super glad to, because I saw it in theaters, but I was super glad to rewatch it because, and I definitely needed it to go into Smile 2 because I had not hadn't seen it since then, and it was like just kind of forgetting some of the rules, if you will. Not that there's like a hard set of rules in that movie, which sometimes annoys me with stuff with horror. It's like if I don't know how your ghost works or your demon works, and it's like, well, then how do you defeat this thing if we don't know what the rules are?
You don't.
This one's
you really don't.
You don't. Dude, seeing the way that shit ended, I was like, oh my fucking God.
Well, I haven't seen Smile 2.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil Smile 2, but
I assume 3 things about it. Kyle Gallner's in it.
yes.
Good. People kill themselves in horrific ways. Sorry, unalive themselves. We're not doing that. We're on Spotify and Apple. They don't care. They fucking kill themselves.
Yes.
Okay, and then lastly, the giant many-mouthed weird titty monster is like flopping around and being angry.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
There's a weird part for sure.
Yeah.
There's
Well, what's
lots of
funny?
weird parts.
Oh my God, I know exactly when I watched this. I could probably give you a date if you pulled up your letterbox. When we watched Barbarian, that week I watched Smile because it recommended it to me.
Oh, okay.
And the whole time I'm sitting there like,
I mean, there are large titty monsters.
well, that's the point. Is the whole time I'm like, why the fuck is this getting like? This has not. It feels
it's very different.
Barbarian feels so like a guy with a vision makes a crazy movie, and then Smile feels like corporate think tank. And so
a little bit. It's Smile
clean.
is and it's very much it's a bit like The Ring. It's a bit like It Follows. It's, you know, this thing is following people, is attaching itself to people, and you pass it from person to person to person.
But like visually, it's all the same. It's just creepy clowns are creepy and pushing on odd facial expressions at weird angles. But it's all like, it's to me the first Smile, and the first Smile movie's fine.
Yeah.
But it's very like if a robot wrote a horror movie. Because it doesn't understand smiling. It only frowns. AI is going to be the death of all of us. But
That's probably correct.
and the whole time I'm watching Smile, I'm like, why the fuck? How does this have anything to do with Barbarian? And then the weird part.
Yeah, the weird part happens.
The giant thing. And it's like, and you know, it's big. It's naked. Big smile, weird, you know, naked titty body, and it's going crazy, and it's like, oh, it's Barbarian.
It has that moment where it's like it's already this giant weird thing, and then it pulls its face off.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, there's a weird part on the weird part?
Oh shit, it's Nicolas Cage.
That's
Because it took its face off. Ladies and gentlemen, gather around this campfire and welcome yourself to the Third Channel Podcast. Try to shake it up.
Where we delve into the horror franchises you love from the perspectives of a lifelong horror fan.
And a newbie to the genre, I'm PJ.
And I'm Derek.
And today the only thing we're here to talk about, like every week, is horror. Today's horror comes in the garden variety of Scream 6, the final Scream tier.
For now.
Yeah. And we'll discuss the unfortunate kind of
future of this franchise.
And I'm not going to say unfortunate because Scream 7 seems like they have, good people involved and that there are things about it that I'm fairly excited about. But I would like to have seen this conclude a bit more.
Right. Especially
intentionally.
with where this film leaves off.
Yeah.
Like, I've rewatched it several times this week. And so it does kind of give us a closure for these characters in a bit. But it's still like, it's closure in a way that's still open to where we can do more with these sisters and this friend group.
And they play on the most interesting thing at the end is the fact that she is Billy's kid and has those like murderous tendencies that she tries to fight against because it's like this little side thing. It doesn't seem to matter in the long run until she is inevitably confronted and then kills Richie. And she kills him in this horrific way and seems to enjoy it. And it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. That's a different take on this character who up until now has just been kind of cookie cutter and a little boring. And so in this one, they play with that a lot more. And then at the end, she's got the mask, she's walking away, and they're not going to do anything with that. I was like, well, that was the interesting part to me.
Yeah.
And now we're going to start back up with something else. Nev's involvement suggests another Sidney story, which I was also fine stepping away from that.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess let's just jump right into Scream 6.
Yeah. IMDb, the description of this.
Oh, yeah.
Is so 4 was a bad description. 5 was a great one. This is back to bad.
Okay.
And
I haven't looked at this.
Yeah, it's back to bad because 4 was misleading, but in this one, it's just like it describes the very beginning of the film, and that's it.
Okay.
Scream 6. The survivors of the Ghostface killings leave Woodsboro behind and start a fresh new chapter in New York City. End of summary. That's it.
That's it.
That's the whole summary.
I mean, I guess that's all you need.
Yeah, it suggests nothing about the actual plot or happenings in the movie at all. It is the premise of, well, how do we get them to New York? And that's it.
Yeah. But they at least tie it in with, we knew that Gail was the anchor in New York. And so we've gone to the place where she just happens to be the anchor of the news in New York. So
which is good.
We can bring her in.
Yeah. She rode her bike down there.
She did. A lot of bikes in the city. Scream 6 released March of 2023. We actually saw this one in theaters.
We did.
Together. I had seen Scream 5 in theaters the year before because much like from Scream 1 to Scream 2, they immediately, they greenlit this one February 3rd of 2022. So that was only 3 weeks after Scream 5 had been released.
Makes sense.
So they immediately were just like, yep, let's do it again. We made money. Let's continue this story, which I'm glad they did. And then they got it out just a year later.
Yeah, I had seen Scream 6 in theaters with you, and I had seen Scream 5 in my home theater earlier that day.
That is true.
In
We
my
watched
home
them
theater,
back to back.
I mean a chair from IKEA at my 65-inch TV.
It was nice.
It was a good experience.
This one is again directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett.
I think all three of those are both right and wrong.
Probably. It's one of several.
And we'll figure that out when we listen to the commentary where they say their names, but actually this time pay attention.
Yeah, I leaned over to you and was just like, that's how he says it. And then completely forgot. I didn't write it down phonetically, so it didn't help me.
In defense of you, though, after he says it and you were like, oh, that's how you pronounce his name, an hour plus of movie then plays. So it's like, well, yeah, that's the piece that gets pushed out of your head. That makes sense.
Same writing team on this one, James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick. Our budget for this one, any guesses, PJ.
I don't remember what the budget for Scream 5 is, but I did recently look up the budget for Dune because I was interested in the budget of Dune. And Dune's budget was, I think, $167 million.
That's a lot of money.
Now, I liked Scream 6 more than I liked Dune. And so I'm going to assume that budgets are equal exclusively to my personal enjoyment of the film. So I'm going to guess $230 million.
Wow.
Spot on.
Yeah, like you take 200 million off of that and you got it. 33 to 35 million.
Okay.
So it went up a little bit from Scream 5. Scream 5 had the same budget as Scream 2.
Oh, that's right, because it was an insane fact.
Yeah.
And this is why studios fucking love horror movies. Because Dune made, I think it was like 700 million worldwide, and it cost 167 million to make. This cost 30 million. And how much did it make?
It made more than Scream 5.
Oh, good.
So it made 169 million. And obviously they're going to do a sequel because it made a ton of money.
A fuck ton of money, yeah.
Just for the kind of to set the table for this one, gets greenlit in February 2022. Shortly thereafter, June 6th, 2022, Neve Campbell announces on Instagram, I believe, that she would not be returning as Sidney for Scream 6. She had been in contract negotiations, salary negotiations. They had stalled out with Paramount, and basically she was not getting paid she was not being offered pay for what she thinks that she deserves for, being the main character of a franchise for going on 6 films.
Yeah.
That besides Scream 4 really had made money every single time.
Yeah.
So her statement I have here is, as a woman, I have had to work extremely hard in my career to establish my value, especially when it comes to Scream. I felt that the offer that was presented to me did not equate to the value I have brought to the franchise, which, I don't know what those figures were. I don't know what she makes on these movies in the past and what she was maybe asking for and they weren't willing to give her for this one. I know that at the time that this statement was made and she was stepping away from the film, almost everyone from the previous Scream movies and this current set of Scream movies, all were backing her. I'm just like, nope, I completely understand it. You are the Scream franchise.
Well, and the fact that Courtney Cox is in the movie suggests to me that they were willing to pay some of them what they needed, but not others, which is crazy because the things that Ghostface says are, what's your favorite scary movie? And hello fucking Sidney. And that's who, there's this rumor that for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Robert Shea was like, well, we don't need Robert Englund. He's asking for too much money. So fuck him. Just get a stunt guy and put him in a mask.
Yeah, it's a guy in a mask. Who cares?
Right. But it wasn't a guy in a mask. And it fell apart immediately because Robert Englund is, and apparently they looked at the dailies and went,
yeah, I think they
fuck.
shot for 2 days.
And they were like, yeah, never mind. Give him what he wants. Which is how, now what I will say is that this is an interesting comparison because Robert Englund is the killer in a horror franchise. And that's the important part. Because 6 did not have Sidney, and I don't feel like it was lacking.
No, because, and I think it's the writing that allows it to work that way.
Right.
Because we have written, they had written a way of well, let's keep her character out. There's no reason to bring her back into the fold for this one. And it doesn't feel forced. It feels like, no, it was a stretch for her to even come back last time.
Right.
Dewey immediately calls her and is do not come back here.
And the only reason that she would is because he died.
Exactly.
And you can't kill him again. Well, you could, but it would take a weird twist and they would have to raise him up and it's alive. And Frankenstein
They would have to do like they did in Stab 5 and use time travel, which is hinted at the beginning of Scream 4.
Do you also really want to watch the Stab movies?
I do. I would love, even if they were just short films.
Well, that's the thing is you've got Grindhouse makes these trailers and then Thanksgiving becomes a movie.
Yeah.
Make Stab. Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah,
make
please.
Stab.
Since, it normally takes you far too long to make any of the movies that you've promised me over the years. It took so long for you to make Sin City 2 that Michael Clark Duncan, Brittany Murphy, I believe there's some other people, all passed away before we even got there. So you had to recast their characters. And,
Derek.
Okay, sorry.
The big problem with Robert Rodriguez is that he hasn't made Shark Man and Lava Woman, and we know that.
They did.
No, they didn't.
They did a sequel to that movie. I think it's on Netflix.
That's amazing.
It's called something else, but I do believe that there is a sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Okay, no, you are right. The problem is Sin City. I was wrong.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Courtney Cox as Gale. So what's interesting with that, and I got these figures, and then I found another one the other day, but with the release of Scream 6, Courtney Cox has the record for to be the first, but not only. I had it as first and only, but then I found another figure. First actress to appear in 6 consecutive films of a horror franchise. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis has appeared in 7 Halloween films, but not consecutively.
Right.
Because she was in Halloween 2.
Not 3.
She does a voice cameo in 3, but she's not physically.
Is she
in it.
Laurie Strode?
No.
Right. I guess that doesn't count.
Then she's in H2O and
Resurrection briefly.
And then she's in Kills, Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
So that's 7.
Yeah.
But that's not consecutive. So Courtney has her on that. Now, there are only 7 actors as of this recording, I'll say, that have achieved the same honor in the horror franchises out there. Go ahead.
One of them has to be Englund.
Yes.
Okay.
So Christopher Lee as Dracula.
Okay.
Because all the Hammer horror Dracula films. Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Do you want to take guesses at any of these? Because we've watched basically the rest of these we've all watched.
And you said it's 6?
7 actors who have appeared in 6
Doug Bradley.
consecutive. Doug Bradley as Pinhead.
6 is where I get fucked up because it's like, well, then it's not Leprechaun and it's... Oh, is it? Okay. No, you're right.
Warwick Davis is Leprechaun.
I always exclude the In the Hood Leprechaun movies because they feel so...
But
they're
there.
consecutive. Oh, shit.
Another one of our favorites, your favorites especially.
Chucky, Brad Dourif.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and then the show also. So they're counting voices because then Jamie Lee would be for Halloween 3.
No, they're not counting it for that. I think this is like performances itself.
Oh, gotcha.
And then the last 2 are Tobin Bell as Jigsaw.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And Roger Dale Jackson.
Oh,
Ghostface.
yeah. Okay, great.
The only other one that I found is Mila Jovovich
In the
Resident Evil films.
Right.
Because she's done 6 of those before they rebooted them.
It's crazy to think of all of these franchises with these people that are in it over and over and over again. I think the reason Pinhead stuck out to me, and I talked about this yesterday, I was at a comic shop and I was talking to the person running the comic shop about our show and about what we're discussing, and mentioned to him, like, because he's known me for a very long time, and he's like, well, I thought you exclusively didn't like this stuff. I thought this was something. It's like, yeah, that's the point of the show, is that I've now gotten into it, and so we're talking about it. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, well, how much could you have possibly watched? And I was like, I've seen all of the Hellraiser movies, every single one of them. And he was like, oh my God, even the ones without him? And it's like, yeah.
That was a mistake.
I watched Henry Cavill get sex acts performed on him in a weird mansion during a email invite only party, and he wasn't Superman by the end of it.
What the fuck movie is this?
Oh, hey, everybody.
yeah.
Producer Ty's here. Producer Ty, that's a movie called Hell World. It's a Hellraiser film, and Henry Cavill's in it, and he has a simulated sex act performed on him by another actress in a mansion party, and it's bizarre.
What the? Okay.
That one's the one that you're going to watch. Is that what you're saying?
I plead the 5th.
He pleads the 5th time watching that movie. It was his favorite time. That's insane to me that she's done this legacy of work in this. And like, I was surprised to find out that she was in it. Like seeing Scream 5 and Courtney Cox's face appearing, I was like, she's in this? Because it just, I don't know why. I don't think it's, speaking on the perspective of people who don't live with scary movies in their pocket, it was surprising to find out that Monica from Friends is in a horror franchise. Just surprised. I knew her from Friends and from Cougar Town.
Oh, right. Because, at that point, she had, I mean, 2 big sitcoms under her belt.
Yeah, but I only know Cougar Town because of Community. So it's this tangled web.
Hey, River! Okay, nerds, listen up. As terrifying as this all is, I'm actually glad I get a chance to redeem myself for not calling the killers last time. It's fine. Okay, the way I see it, someone is out to make a sequel to the requel.
What's a requel?
You're beautiful, sweetie. Let's hold questions to the end.
Stab 1 took place in Woodsboro. Stab 2 took place in college.
So do we think that the killer is trying to copy the movies?
That is one possibility. Heroes now in college. Check. Suspicious new characters brought in to round out the suspect list and/or body count. Check, check, and check.
I don't like this.
But it can't just be about Stab 2.
Why not?
It would make sense if this were just a sequel. But we're not in a sequel because nobody just makes sequels anymore. We're in a franchise, and there are certain rules to a continuing franchise.
I had a feeling.
Rule 1, everything is bigger than last time. Bigger budget, bigger cast, bigger body count, longer chases, shootouts, beheadings. You gotta top what came before to keep people coming back.
Beheadings?
Beheadings. Rule 2, whatever happened last time, expect the opposite. Franchises only survive by subverting expectations. If the killers last time were whiny snowflake film nerds with letterboxd accounts instead of personalities, you can bet the opposite will be true here. And rule 3, no one is safe. Legacy characters, cannon fodder at this point. Usually brought back only to be killed off in some cheap bid for nostalgia. It's not looking too good for Gale and Kirby.
Well, that was really meta.
Well, yeah. Have you not been listening to us at all for like weeks now?
I mean,
He downloaded a game on his phone
Yeah,
within
dude,
the first 10 minutes of episode 0.
dude, I'm on level like 50.
He's a great man. And by the way, that's really bad for as long as
Dude,
we've been
I'm
recording this.
so bad at this game.
Yeah, it's like I hit level 50 in like 25 minutes.
Dude, I'm really bad at the game.
Well, yeah, we were just paying to play.
Hey, yeah. And no, so I have 2 comments about that scene.
Wait, paying?
Yeah, it's pay to win. I pay to win in life because I'm broke.
No, I meant me.
Again, for the final time, you are paid in room and lodge in our attic, and you are paid in a single Pringle.
I bought him a bag of gummy bears today.
Oh, you bought me a Monster Energy as well.
Dude, I'm employee of the fucking year around here, and this is a great establishment.
Thank you.
Well, he's moving on up.
To that, I'm trying to think of, to that deluxe podcast on the air. I have 2 comments that I want to make about that clip specifically. The first one is she talking about us? When she's
You and I?
film nerds with letterboxd accounts instead of personalities. Is that us?
I mean, you could take it that way. Did you take offense?
Is this film talking about us? The second thing, I love so much that people are always so put out by the rules conversations
Right.
that the second whomever whether Randy or Mindy, whomever is beginning the speech about the rules, everyone's like, "Oh, here we go," and it's like, "No, bitch, get out a notepad."
That's what's funny. Okay, so in this one, Chad whips out and starts writing down notes as frantically as he can. And whenever she says the word beheadings, he's like, beheadings?
And
Which then gets a payoff later on.
It's so insane to me that like Mindy's like kind of inferred partner Annika is sitting there like, yeah, here we go, and it's like, if you could only see the future, no, pay very close attention, and it is the same. I love Mindy's actress's performance in these 2 installments because she captures that quintessence of I know what is going to happen. I am aware, beat for beat, what is going to happen. I can see the world as though it were a film. And because it is, I am the god of this world. And no one is fucking listening to me. And the poor thing.
No, I think she does a good job of picking up where Randy left off, but then being her own character as well. Because it's the passing of the torch to a new generation, and they talk about and think about films in different ways than they did in the 90s. So that's the whole point.
Scream 4 had a decent payoff with that, being 2 representatives of like a film club. It makes sense for them to do it, but I'm more like less of we are entrenched by title, and I like more. No, I've just seen too much of this because that's more Randy. Is no, I have seen all of this happen before, and now it's happening in real life, and no one will get out of the fucking house when I tell them to.
Yeah.
Poor Randy.
And for Mindy in this one, it's especially funny because she's trying to. She got everything wrong the last time this happened. Everyone she thought was a killer was not, and she ended up getting nearly killed herself and things like that. So it's like she's trying to redeem herself in this moment.
And right from the jump with what she gives the group and begins to elucidate on. Sorry, Jake. She begins to expand on in plain English, and hopefully that works. All of the points that she makes are about this monster of a reality wherein it's no longer, oh, well, this is this number, so now we have to look out for this stuff. I like this rules discussion specifically more because the guardrails are gone. We are now in this extremely open-ended thing where anything can happen. The one thing I don't like, and we'll get to the ending at some point, but it's like that doesn't really pay off.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's fine. But it's Chekhov's gun. Like you set these expectations and then none of those happen.
Yeah, not really. Start like we do. The opening sequence. It is it's the longest opening sequence of these films so far.
Flash Thompson.
Yes.
Scared the fuck out of me.
Such a strange, honestly, like from the commentary, the writers both spoke about, because they would like go and they'd do their own ideas and they'd come together and be like, okay, well, this is what I'm thinking. And one would begin speaking and go, I want to unmask Ghostface within the opening scene. And then the other one holds up their notes and says the same thing. And they hadn't had that discussion. It was just like, that's the logical thing we need to do next. We've never done that.
Seeing that actor get unmasked as Ghostface in the theaters would be like in a Friday the 13th movie, Jason getting unmasked and it being Biff Tannen from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
It's like, what? What are you doing here?
Yeah, because it is. It's like you know him from another big franchise that's happening at the same time.
Where he's a dumb bully.
Right.
And like young. And then, well, Biff, jury's out because of the future traveling. But it is so bizarre. And he does a good job.
He does a good job.
I don't know that actor's name, but he does a good job.
Yeah. So the opening sequence like begins with this amazing fake out of like a phone ringing, and then it's at the front of the restaurant. And it's already playing with our expectations. We have a date of a
film studies professor, an adjunct professor who is teaching a course specifically on 80s and 90s slasher movies.
Yeah. And so she begins talking to, I'm going to mess up his name. Tony Revolori?
Okay.
He is who plays Jason in this. He who plays Flash Thompson in the Spider-Man films.
Okay.
That's what I was looking for his name, but that I then butcher. But what's funny is, so it's like the woman, the actress in that opening scene is Samara Weaving, who they had worked with on, they being the directing team of Radio Silence. They had worked with her on Ready or Not before the Scream movies. So she's playing a character named Laura Crane, which is a play on Marion Crane from Psycho. So already within the opening, we are like name references to other things.
Well, and then the Tony is playing a character named Jason.
Yes. And so, he tricks her outside. We don't necessarily know that that's him because we see a picture of what we think he looks like.
Like a catfish. Yeah.
But like once you know it's him, then you hear his voice. Like on the rewatch, you're like, it was him from the jump. It was just you didn't necessarily know it.
The craziest part of the opening, because it sets you, it kind of winds you through, and it takes almost too long. And it's something that annoyed me in the theater. And then on a rewatch, I had the thought of it's like, well, no, the person that I'm looking at is waving, and it's intentional misdirection of the killer to the victim. And in the theater, I'm like, Jesus, this is taking so long. And it's like, oh, on the rewatch, and this may just be me projecting onto the film, but it's like, oh, well, of course it's taking a long time. This is poorly thought out. This is a college kid trying to be a murderer for the first time.
Yeah, that's a good take on that.
Having only seen Scream 5 before this,
right?
the slash where he, slashes across her, and then it's still going.
Yeah, the blood splashes on the mask.
Right.
Which is like the first time we've really seen that, I think. And then he squats down.
And then the mask
immediately
comes off.
unmasks, and it's like, well, what is happening?
Well, because in the theater, you bristled at that.
Yeah.
You were like,
Because it is so different than what we've seen.
and I don't
what
know.
I had seen.
Yeah, I have no idea of why that's different in any way. And then a rewatch, because in the weeks leading, we have seen Scream 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 2-3 times each. So it's just like, it is like if you've ever seen the Adult Swim like weird video, Too Many Cooks, and it's like it's a sitcom opening, and then all of a sudden like you see the set pieces and like the names of like starring Bob Saga, but that name is like floating around, and it becomes like
It's a surreal like horror film.
you've poked your head into the TV, and that's what that felt like. It's like, well, no, hold on. Why is this happening? Why didn't we cut to either some pop song or Red Right Hand? Why didn't we do something that the series does? It's really effective.
Yeah. And then he makes it back to his apartment, but he bumps into Jenna Ortega's Tara on the way.
Yeah.
And we realize that, this is taking place around Halloween time, which is a first for the franchise as far as I'm aware. And so we make it back to his apartment, and it's like, well, we're still it's Rick and Morty interdimensional cable whenever it's real fake doors, and then the commercial ends, and then we watch him drive home, and they're like, are we still in the commercial? What is happening? Like it's a bit of that. Like he goes all the way home, and then he's like hanging out, and he takes a call from Ghostface. And it's like, what is happening?
And something that I've noticed is that when you watch The Simpsons or Family Guy, long entrenched shows with single voice actors, their voices for those characters change. If you watch the first episode of Family Guy to the last episode of Family Guy that's aired, Peter's voice is night and day. Stewie's voice is night and day. Because in the beginning, they have an idea for the voice, and then it works itself into a sort of real person. And Ghostface is very much the same way. It's much lower. He growls a lot more. He kind of does this almost like English affectation sometimes to punctuate words. It's like it has a life of its own.
Right.
And that's my favorite part is that so you go back to Scream 2, and Sidney's introduction in Scream 2 is picking up the prank call. And it's like the voice is wrong. It's Roger Jackson, but it's wrong.
Yeah, he wouldn't say the things that he's saying.
But this picking up an hello, Jason. And it's just like, no, that's him. That's him. Whoever this is. And it's like, I like to look at the Ghostface killer as the Ghostface killer is just the murderous intent. That's what makes that killer a character that overarcs all of these franchises. It's not that it's, Nancy Loomis or Jill Roberts. It's not who it is under the mask.
Right.
It's the character of Ghostface is the murderous intent of someone who has had a psychotic break and is looking to kill someone.
Yeah.
Typically Sidney.
Typically.
Sometimes a cop by stabbing him in the brain.
Scream 4, everybody. And then we close out our opening sequence with a hot and cold game, which again, we're back to a game. We're back to there's a dead person here, and then our celebrity cameo on top of our celebrity cameo gets killed.
Right. Well, and what's funny about that too is that the game this time was almost like a red herring. It's like, oh, well, shit, it probably isn't the real Ghostface, because Ghostface's games typically revolve around, they revolve around trivia, film trivia specifically. And this is a children's game.
Yeah.
So maybe not.
Until it is. And then he gets brutally murdered up against that fridge.
The body in the refrigerator is probably the most gruesome thing in any of these films.
Yeah. I
struggle to think of something that tops that.
Because we don't always see like completely butchered like body parts afterwards in these movies.
It's like
we see a lot of stabbings, but then not kind of the after.
And like we've seen in 5, you have Wes and he gets the knife through his neck. And then, you know, in Scream 4, the neighbor who gets like just stabbed. But most of that stabbing occurs off. Yeah. You just see kind of the aftermath.
You do see the aftermath on especially that one in Scream 4 because it does kind of reflect back to not the Casey Becker like being hanged outside, but like it's the entrails have been cut out of her. Like it's.
But this is not only is this, oh no, there is a disseminated body shoved into this refrigerator, but then it's also, and this guy's going to have, you know, because he gets stabbed in the stomach. Jason gets stabbed in the stomach by Ghostface so many times that his insides, like his stomach skin is like perforated and his insides come out. Yeah. And it's like, so not only are we seeing the most brutal on-screen death, but the backdrop of that death is some of the most brutal set dressing that the series has done so far. And that's our opening, which leads to my personal favorite title swipe line of all time. Who gives a fuck about movies? It's so good.
Yeah. It's because it is everything up until this point has been, you know, our killers are horror fans. And once the reveal happens of who the killers are in this one, it's not about that. Yeah, it is just a revenge story.
Yeah, real quick, because I do have a point on that, so we're going to have to tear that Band-Aid off. If you don't want to know the killers, okay, welcome back. So the killers, specifically the killer in this, Richie's father, who in this goes by the pseudonym Officer Bailey, who is Johnny Seasons, who is a character from The Righteous Gemstones, which is one of my favorite shows. Right. But Johnny Seasons, also known as Officer Bailey, exclusively for the rest of this episode. I assume that he's the one who kills these people because he is later shown to have been at that crime scene.
Yes, and because of the mask that he ends up wearing at the end, or you know, revealing that he's been wearing. So anytime you see that mask on rewatch, you know that it's him.
Because he's the dad of this movie-obsessed kid who never shared the passion, never shared the hobby, and then now has to take revenge because of a Nancy Loomis-style psychotic break, has to take revenge and kill these people. And so he doesn't have the movie references. So the game is hot or cold.
Yeah.
And who gives a fuck about movies is like, I don't give a fuck about that. That's not why I'm doing this. I don't give a shit about Stab. I don't give a shit about, you know, movie references that are lost on you and how dare you. Do you want to play movie trivia? It's no, you killed my son, so I'm going to kill everyone you know, and then I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's a clearer motive, but wow, is that separate from the rest of this series?
It sets it apart. Whereas like the rest of this movie a lot borrows from huge swaths of Scream 2. Yeah. And the fact that it's taking place at a college. And they said that in, you know, the clip that we played, but whenever Mindy is giving kind of the breakdown of the rules of like this, but there's other big set pieces that are openly just, well, this is what happened in Scream 2 or in their universe. This is what happened in Stab 2. Yeah. You know, this is how our Uncle Randy died. Do you realize that? And I was just like, oh yeah, I guess that's true.
He died in a van down by the river.
Yes. After the opening sequence, we go to Melissa Barrera's character of Sam Carpenter is in therapy. And Jenna Ortega's Tara Carpenter is going to a college frat party.
Where we meet back up with the main cast.
Correct.
Right. All doing good. There's a new kid who looks... And maybe they overplayed their hand a little bit because Ethan, the curly-haired kid who is friends with Chad at this party, I was like, that looks just like Jack Quaid.
That's part of the reason they cast him.
Oh, and that's probably
is
good.
How close he looked to Jack Quaid.
Because, again, Ghostface killer spoiler, that is another one of the Ghostface killers. In this movie, there are 3. That is another one of them. That is Ethan, who is Richie, Jack Quaid's character from 5. That's his brother, who is enacting the revenge plot with the father. And I think that this is probably one of the best Ghostface killer, like, disguise performances of, like, because I truly never suspect Ethan.
Right.
I suspect him based on the meta visualization of, no, well, he looks like this character who was. Right. But outside of that, it's like, no, I think the performance is very good. He doesn't ever give the farm away.
Yeah, and what's funny is, like, the only other things that I've really seen that guy in are he was in He has this bit part in Avengers Endgame where he is the kid on a bike whenever when Scott Lang wakes up. He comes out of, the being shrunk in time, and then he goes to his house that's been like abandoned because half the population has been gone for the last 5 years. And there's like a kid that goes by on a bike and he like, what is happening here? And the kid's like gives him a weird look and like pedals off. So it's these like blink and you miss it that. And then he's in the Avatar movies. And so he's in Way of Water and he's going to be in all the other Avatar movies. But he shot all of those movies first and then they haven't come out yet by the time that this Scream movie comes out. Because we don't need to go on a whole Avatar thing, but like the performances for Avatars 2, 3, 4, and 5 have already been shot. They were shot in like 2018 or something.
Yeah.
And so that was shot way. And so you then see him in those movies and it's like, how is he younger in this movie than he is in Scream?
Avatar truly is the Boyhood of acting.
Yes, it is. But Jack Champion is his name. And I think
a good name.
I think he does a phenomenal job.
He's the champion. He's the champ. Jack Champ. That's a good name.
Yeah. So he's one of our new characters. And then Mindy's girlfriend, what did we say her name was?
Annika.
Annika, thank you. She's the other kind of new character that we're introduced to. Who
I also like. Yeah, as another grounding element to, and I think these movies need that to give a sort of explanation as to why these people who have been through such high stress traumatic situations may ever go, well, no, it's probably not this time, because you have to have normal people to ground them. Because if not, they're Laurie Strode in age 40. They've built a house filled with bear traps and whatnot. So you have to give them reasons. And these are younger characters, so it makes more sense. But you give them reasons to ground them into, well, no, probably not this time.
Right. And I think, I don't know if it's just a difference in how we as people and different generations now deal with trauma and friendships and dealing with things like this. But I think that 5 and 6 do a very good job of showing how this group of friends actually like talk about their trauma and how are they dealing with this. They're going to therapy. They're helping each other through these times, which we don't really get to see with the original cast because I just don't think it was something that we as a people were worried about too much in the 90s.
Mental health isn't really a discussion back then. But, and you mentioned that Sam's in therapy and she is.
Right. And actually, let me get this out of the way right now. So Sam, Melissa Barrera, is in therapy. So in my research and rewatching for this movie discussion for Scream 6, I, after a comment I made on our discussion of Scream 5, I went back and rewatched In the Heights, which I had said that, I saw in theaters. I had not seen much in the same way that I hadn't watched this movie since theaters. I knew that Melissa Barrera was in that movie, but I couldn't tell you who she played. And then I was like,
is she also a kid on a bike?
No, she's not.
Okay.
That would be hilarious. No, she's like the female lead in that movie.
Oh my God.
Which does not speak well of her performance.
Yeah.
Now I will say her performance in the Heights is leaps and bounds better than what she was in Scream 5. This is of course my personal opinion. And her performance in The Heights was the thing that like made the directors like very, very excited to have her in Scream. But that being said, as good as her performance might be in The Heights, it is still, of all that cast, probably the weakest and probably the least like memorable.
Sure.
Because in The Heights, there are so many incredible performances there that she just like, she's fine. Comparatively.
If you can't remember seeing Paul Rudd in Ant-Man, like, oh shit, that's right, he is in that, then he's done a terrible job.
So I do think she does a bit of a better job in Scream 6 than 5.
Markedly, sure.
Yeah. But I think the rest of the cast just still like outshine her most of the time, if not all of the time.
Yeah.
And the only other person that's then introduced in this scene is once Sam gets done with therapy, she goes back to their apartment, which she shares with Tara and with Quinn.
Yes.
Who is Quinn Bailey, the daughter of Detective Bailey.
Brother of Ethan and Richie, who is the third Ghostface killer. It's also, I think, the best faked death Billy's is fine and it's good, and the movie's a little dated, so it's a little bit, it's got to be a little rudimentary, but this is a good faked death.
Yes.
Oh, we also meet hot neighbor guy.
Yes.
Who is named, can't remember the name they give the character. Danny. And he is Sam's secret boyfriend who they've been seeing each other throughout, the time that they've lived in this apartment. I like that guy. He's in, you've seen him in something recently. I saw him in Abbott Elementary. He's a member of the school board in Abbott Elementary.
Yeah. No, he's in She-Hulk, and I believe there was another TV show he was in that we were like, oh yeah, he's in that. I can't think of it right now. His full name is, and this is a minor thing, but his full name is Danny Brackett, which is more than likely a reference to Annie Brackett, the character in Halloween.
Okay, that's funny.
Who is Laurie Strode's friend.
That's good.
Who then, that character is played by the actress Nancy Loomis.
Right.
Which we didn't reference, but Nancy Loomis being the mother of.
Right. Which is all tied back to Dr. Samuel Loomis.
Yes. So we missed that in our last discussion of all these naming conventions and references.
It's because there's too many. Yep. There's too many to count. We meet them. They and we get back to the Ghostface of it all very quickly. Which most of these movies, that is how it begins.
Yes.
Is Ghostface's inclusion into their lives is fairly quick, if not immediate, in the case of Scream 5, where one of our characters is the celebrity attack in the beginning.
Right.
But in this one, after spending some time in the apartment, they go to get Tara from the house party.
Yes. So Sam goes to get Tara. They have their kind of sister moment of Tara is going to college. All of them are going to college. Sam is several years older than them, but she has basically just followed them to New York to live there. She works a couple jobs to pay rent, but Tara's whole thing is what are you doing? Why are you here? What is your point to be here? I'm moving on with my life. Why are you so stuck on these things that happened to us over the course of 3 days a year ago? And she uses, she tells her of you can't be here to watch me nonstop. You disappeared from my life for years, and now you won't leave me alone. And so you have to let me go, which is a theme throughout this movie. Is Sam learning to let go of Tara and having to feel like she has to protect her all the time.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter, they get the news report that these murders have happened, because at that point there's 3 dead bodies that they've got to account for. And so Sam is immediately okay, well, we have to leave town.
Yeah, we're getting the fuck out of here. They leave. They get that phone call, and it's the first kind of clue. They get a phone call from Richie's phone, which leads to one of the crazier Ghostface moments, because a lot of Ghostface's stalky moments are running around and fumbling and falling over stuff. But this is a moment where it is Ghostface is obviously. Ghostface isn't really fucking around this time.
Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah.
Because all the other ones, it is a lot of pratfalls that we've talked about, and this one is not. This one is far more Ghostface seems trained in some way, which again should be our clue, but you don't think about it when you're watching it the first time.
It's he gets the gun away from the shop owner, immediately puts a round in his head. He's quiet and calculated and listening, and they trick him, which is good because we have to have our survivors survive. But it's that's one of the scarier Ghostface moments is he's stood up to against by a crowd in this bodega. They stand up to him and are you want to get them, you gotta get through me. Sorry, it's in New York. Yeah, and he immediately starts attacking them.
Yeah, he kills 2 of them immediately.
And Halloween kills them, and they're immediately oh fuck, we're not firefighters, and they run away.
Yeah, and then he like you said, he gets that gun away from the shop owner, and it breaks one of these unwritten rules of Ghostface, which is Ghostface can use a gun, but only once he's been unmasked. And so this is where you're watching Ghostface use a shotgun for the first time.
A fucking a stockless shotgun, and he blows his brains out. And then it's just it's the boot stepping on the glass, walking slowly and methodically, and it's oh, this is bad.
It's very it's a very, Tara and Sam are hiding in this very small bodega.
Yeah. It's a stressful scene.
It is, and it's a lot like the raptor in the kitchen scene of Jurassic Park, where the kids are hiding, and row by row they're having to silently move as quietly as possible to get away from this thing, and he's a predator.
Yeah. The difference is that when they unmasked the Velociraptor, it was a robot.
Oh,
And when they unmasked Ghostface, it was Johnny Seasons from the Righteous Gemstones. We should do a special episode on the Righteous, like the whole four. Like
we cover all.
yeah,
all
because the
seasons.
4th season is coming out soon. So when that's out and we've watched the whole thing, we'll do a special episode on the Righteous. We won't, but I would like to.
We'll just record that for us.
Leave a comment down below if you'd like to have us do a special episode on all 4 seasons of the Righteous Gemstones sometime next year when the entire season is aired.
Ty, you a Gemstone fan?
No, I've heard of it, but never actually watched it. I am kind of logistically wondering how the fuck you plan on talking about 4 seasons worth of show in one episode.
Poorly.
Yeah.
Got it.
We'll spend 10 minutes on each season, 40-minute episode. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We move next to the police station, where they reveal that the mask that was found at Jason and Greg's apartment from our opening kills belonged to Richie from Scream 5, and that the mask that was found at the bodega was the one used by either Charlie or Jill from Scream 4. And so it begins this new thing that they're doing in this movie where it's like, oh, well, one, for the first time, they are directly referencing things that happened in other Scream movies that are not Scream the original.
Or Stab.
Correct.
Because they use Stab to reference things in Scream movies without referencing them. But this is the first time where it's like, yeah, no, you're hearing names like Stu Macher be used in reference to killings now.
Right. But the difference there is that they're referencing, because they've used Stu before, they've used Billy before, but this is where they're going, oh, no, we're going to actually mention Roman again. We're going to mention, Jill Roberts. We're going to mention Charlie. We're going to mention, everybody gets a mention.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that hasn't happened. Not only that, we see pictures of all of these people that are put up on a board. And we're like, okay, well, how are we drawing these comparisons?
We also are reintroduced to a character who a couple episodes ago we had a wonderful discussion. Now, what I will say is that we've already had the discussion about the way you love Hayden Panettiere. So I don't think, or Kirby.
I think it's more Kirby.
But I don't think we need to have the discussion of how much and in what ways you love her again. I think that's been tackled.
Kirby's back.
Yep.
We go into a boardroom at this police station, and we see her she's sitting in a chair with her back to us, and she's got these huge boots, like Ghostface boots.
Yeah.
Kicked up on the table. She's got this beautiful blonde hair.
No, just blonde hair.
Okay.
Rein it in.
And then she turns around. And I'm just, the movie, I mean, it's amazing at that point. Because Kirby's back.
Well,
for real.
Great.
There was rumors that it was happening, but until you actually see her on screen, and then, I don't know. It's hard to focus on the rest of the movie at that point. You go ahead.
I'll take over. One thing I do like is that Officer Bailey, obviously intimately involved with the police station, intimately involved with everything, and is aware because his daughter is living with Samantha and Tara at this point, Quinn, and it's almost like she has to have sent him a text like, hey, they're leaving, because he then calls and is like, you can't leave. We found your fucking ID at the crime scene. You can't leave the state. And it's like, at first, first watch through, it's like, oh man, that sucks for them. Because that's a good reason that they can't just go nope and fucking leave. But it was, it's done specifically by the people who then say, no, you can't leave. It's like, this is the first time that we're seeing somebody with the power of, law enforcement operate in this way. And it's spooky. Yeah.
The closest we get is in Scream 4, Sidney's just coming back into town. These murders happen. And she's like, oh, well, I got to get out of here. And Deputy Hicks is just like, well, no, there's an active investigation that you're involved with.
Your face is in the trunk. Right.
You can't leave now. And so it's a similar thing there. We also are introduced to the fact that Kirby and Sam went to school together. because it's all tying it back into Woodsboro. So Kirby was a senior when Sam was a freshman in high school. So again, you start messing with like, well, how old is everybody and how are we connected? But it's an easy enough thing that they're just like, yeah, we knew of each other. Kirby now works for the FBI, the Atlanta department of the FBI. And then shortly thereafter, the girls are still going to leave. The Carpenter sisters are leaving, and they bump into Gale. That's our reintroduction to Gale there. Because the same way in like Scream, 1, where they're leaving the school, in this case, they're leaving the police department, and all the reporters are there just like, Sam, do you have anything to do with these murders? Do you know anything? Do you know the victims? Do you know And then Gale Weathers steps back in and just like, Channel 4, Gale Weathers, would you like to make a statement? And Sam takes a swing at her.
Misses.
Like Sidney has done several times and misses. And Gale's just like, I've done this before, honey. Like, I know what's coming.
And then Tara punches her in the fucking face. That's so
immediately gets decked. Like it is a beautiful little like moment of that for the fans of this franchise.
Yeah, I that's so sad too. That one of the things that we're all like, yeah, is like, yeah, punch Gale in the face. It's so sad.
And so Gale, after dodging and taking a punch, the reason that they are mad at her after they were friends with her at the end of Scream 5 is that in the last year, she has written another book.
Right, which has spawned a lot of hate on, the Woodsboro Truthers. Reddit gets brought back up. So everybody thinks that Samantha killed Richie and that Richie was innocent. And there's a bunch of like I hate to use this term, but it uses like the kind of fake news idea of, well, no, this is the story, but we don't believe it. Richie was innocent. But it's all based off of the book that Gale has now written about the events of 5. And this is the part of the movie that I hate the most.
Right.
Because it completely undoes, to my mind, it completely undoes Gale Weathers.
Yeah.
Because we watch her grow and change. She loses the love of her life in the last movie. She is heartbroken. She is shot. She has to go through physical and emotional trauma once again. All of these things are spawned by the fact that she wrote that first fucking book and had it been made into a movie. Because you can blame the first Scream movie on Billy and Stu. You can, I was going to say Stewie and Bill. But you can blame the actions of the first movie exclusively on them.
Yeah.
And then every movie after that is because of Gale's fucking book. Every single one. And so it's frustrating to me that their answer is, oh, well, she wrote another book.
Yeah.
Like, because I can't speak on characters more than their current writers. It's a comic book fan's biggest, pitfall. I can't speak to the native, behavior and emotion of a character more than the writer, because the character is the writer for the purposes of this piece of media. I am frustrated that the character would completely about face on everything that she has learned and corrected and apologized for, stood for, all of these things.
Over the course of 5 films and 25 years.
Because of a plot point.
Yeah.
That's annoying to me.
It's a bit odd. And they just kind of throw it away of just like, well, I heard that you couldn't sell the movie rights or whatever. And she has a line about like, it's more about, everybody wants, this generation, all they want are like true crime documentaries on Netflix or something. And
she's like, I'm Gale Weathers. Like, what did you expect? And it's like, well, we expected you to act like Gale, not Scream 1 Gale, but because if you're a different character in 2, 3, 4, 5 than you were in 1 to varying degrees, those other films better illustrate your character than the first movie does where you were a flawed person. So to be like, that's me, bitch. It's like, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And it's
a weird undoing.
It's disappointing too, because then immediately it's like, she's back to being helpful. She's back to being like a nose to the ground journalist. She helps them discover the shrine, which we'll get to. She does all of these things that are so useful, but is put them in this situation yet again. And it's like, they didn't need to make it Gale who wrote the book. They could have made it fucking anyone. A nameless fucking character. Yeah, some asshole found out what actually happened and wrote a fucking blog about it. That's all you need.
Yeah, and that they're undoing that character while in the same breath, because in the same scene, then they give Sam or Tara, I can't remember which, asks, she's like, well, where is Sydney? Is she, what is she doing? And Gail's like, no, she's, she and Mark and the kids are someplace safe, and she deserves to have her happy ending, which is like something that, we've been wanting, we, the fans, have been wanting for Sydney as a character since Scream 3. It's like she has her ending there. We come back in, 10 years later with Scream 4.
That's something I didn't even bat an eye at.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she's happy. We're leaving her alone. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
5 movies of being either a direct or indirect victim. It's like, yeah, take this one off.
Yeah. And it's like she had, like we said, she has a reason to come back for Scream 5 because Dewey is killed. But, I mean, other than those 3 days with the Carpenter girls, like, she has no reason to really care about them other than just like, hey, sorry, this is your life now. It sucks.
Yeah, and the other thing...
You do not want to be Sidney Prescott.
The other thing is that my would-be murderer fathered you. That's already a reason to not like that. And that's more nuanced. That's more complicated. That's not a discussion that we're going to accomplish this quickly. But like, in her perspective, it's like, I'm not going out of my way to save Billy Loomis's kid. Mm-hmm. Like, especially after what he did to me. Like, because you can argue that the sex encounter that they have at Stu's party is rape. Because he is, everything about him is a lie. She is giving consent to somebody who does not exist. So like, yeah, no, he was her predator who spawned a life of just horror, tumultuous fear, and a lack of self-confidence because of attempts on her life. How many fucking times? It's like, you can kind of get away with it in 5 because, oh no, now I have stakes in it. And I think they play that well. And we've said that, said that last week. I think they do that well. But here it's like, there's no reason.
It would be a stretch for her to come back.
Right. Unless she was finally the killer, which would be, and again, every Scream fan, please hear me right now. Stu is dead. He doesn't need to come back. That's stupid. That's a dumb thing to do. Sidney and Gail shouldn't be the Ghostface killers. That's a bad take. That's stupid. It would be better every time to write a new character than it would be to go, and Sidney's the killer. Because again, and I mean this, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Our next scene is actually the clip that we played, which is we jump back to the college where Mindy gives the rules. Mm-hmm. And... that this is the sequel to a requel and that it's going to kind of follow certain things that we've seen before, but pretty much everything is completely, anything can happen.
Yeah. And you pointed this out to me that we have not discussed this yet in this franchise.
Right.
This very pivotal thing in this franchise, which is during the beginnings of this sequence, as the camera pulls into them sitting in this college campus, we hear Red Right Hand.
Correct. Which is a song that's been used in all of the Scream movies except one, I believe.
Well, and when it plays in Scream 5, again, the first Scream I saw, when it plays in Scream 5, I didn't make any mention of it. I've heard that song before, and I didn't think to say anything about it. And it's just like, oh, okay, they're using Red Right Hand. That's interesting. And then Scream 6, it happens again. Because they play it in 5 when the mocker is Kyle Gallner's character is killed, is when Red Right Hand plays in 5. The switchblade in the neck, which is another horrific fucking death.
And that's one of those where it's like it plays both, like it's playing on his car stereo.
But it is also score.
Yes, it becomes score after the death. After the car cuts off, it continues to play.
Right. You have that classic shing sound as he stabs him. And then as you move into this movie, it plays as they intro the rules sequence. And this is when in the theater, I'd made note of it. And then I got out and I was like, it's weird that they keep playing that Red Right Hand song. Yes. And you were like, no, it's not. They do that in all of these movies. And I was like, that's the theme song to Peaky Blinders.
Oh, okay.
The Netflix show. That is their theme song.
Oh, bizarre.
It plays during the opening of every episode. So I was like, what the why? How is it both? And I looked it up, and I guess they're lyrically mildly different from one show to the movies.
Yeah, so the song Red Right Hand is by an Australian band called Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I know nothing else of what they play, but I have heard this song, obviously, every Scream movie for the most part. So yeah, it appears in the first 3 Scream movies. It's not in Scream 4 for whatever reason. And then it comes back in both Scream 5 and Scream 6. In Scream 2, I think they use it twice. In Scream 6, they use it twice because it also plays... it plays in this scene, and then it also plays at the very end because Richie uses it as the credit song on his movie that plays at the end.
Which is great.
So, yeah. But yeah, you would think for Scream 4 being like a reboot that they would obviously put it in there, but that's the one that they didn't for whatever reason. And then they also did a remix version of it for Scream 2 that was on the soundtrack, but I don't think played in the movie, where I think they like changed lyrics in it to where it actually mentioned either characters or events from the movie.
Okay.
So it is like ingrained in this franchise.
Yeah.
So seeing it back here again and used, I just think it was interesting that we had never talked about that before.
I wonder how many people watched the first episode, like the pilot episode of Peaky Blinders, and were like, is that the Scream song?
Right.
Which is the exact opposite. But yeah, that struck me as weird.
We needed to bring it up, I felt. That is when it's revealed that shortly thereafter, the rules are given. Roman Bridger's mask is the one that was found at Dr. Stone's crime scene. So Sam's therapist, Dr. Stone, is murdered.
Yeah.
And his just before this scene, where the rules are given, and we see that Ghostface. We follow him into the house or into the therapist's office, and he goes through and he pulls out Sam's file.
Yes. The other thing is the movie that they're watching. Right, there's a movie that the therapist is watching, and it's like the person on the TV. It's like really close up on his face, and it's black and white. And
it's an Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
And he's going, don't, and he's like screaming warnings.
He's like, they're out there, they're already here.
And he's just like, well, time to go to the door.
Because it's. I think there's like a deleted scene that does more of this, but when the few times that you're in that therapist's office, it's kind of revealed through set dressing that Dr. Stone is a horror fan.
Yeah. Because
there's all these like, they look kind of like pop vinyls, but they're not exactly over on one side of the room. And they're like the Addams Family. And in a deleted scene, Sam gets, like, as she's leaving, she sees a Ghostface, one of those little toys. And it's also like why whenever she finally reveals of like,
I'm the daughter of Billy Loomis, famous serial killer from the Stab movies. He's like, get the fuck out of my office. Because like, I physically cannot handle this. No cap on God. Get the fuck out of my office.
Which, I mean, if they were trying to set that up as like he could have been a killer, and then they kill him off pretty quickly after that, so it doesn't go anywhere.
In another horrific way.
Yes.
Because it's just the one, but like, holy shit, that is a terrifying kill.
Yeah.
Through the door.
And through, I mean, just like his nose.
His
basically.
like nasal cavity up into his brain.
Yeah. It's simple, but it's brutal. It's like the West killing in Scream 5 of just like it's just
anything with your
there
face,
and in
man.
your face and in his face.
I'd like to see Ghostface have used a lot of different weapons in this one, though. Like he uses the shotgun, which is new, but like when he stabs Dr. Stone through the door, I would have liked to have seen him use like a medieval bastard sword, like a big one. And then maybe later he uses like...
And he gets like a running start.
Well, what's funny is that in Scream 5, they kind of reference this because it's like he's showing... And the Entertainment Weekly person who's narrating over the trailer for Stab 8 is like, and look at Ghostface's new weapon. And he's like wearing a chrome Ghostface mask and he has a fucking flamethrower.
Right.
That would have been great to actually use that in this one.
Right.
How? I don't know. But...
That I don't know. He's dead. The rules are given. And it's revealed that the Roman Bridger mask. So again, we're moving backwards through all the killers of the previous films. And
which is fun because you're like, oh, I wonder where this will go. And then where it goes is fucking crazy.
Yeah. Like
the coolest set that any of these films have done. It's fucking awesome.
It is. Now, before we get there, we have, I mean, one of the most intense scenes in this franchise to me.
It is pure chaos. It's insane. And I love it because for that reason, but yeah, it's crazy.
We go back to the Carpenter sisters' apartment. And that's where we're introduced to, Chad brings up the Core 4, which is what he's calling their group of the 4 survivors of the previous film.
It also seems like a lot of like the anger that the characters were kind of feeling about each other. The sort of, unspoken things of, well, we've survived, but it's like the second the trauma's back and everyone recognizes that, like, Sam was being intense for a reason. Mindy's paranoid about these things for a reason. And they can kind of let go of their, I want to be done with this, why aren't you? To, oh, now I understand why you aren't done with this, because we're not done. And those tensions lax. It's like a nice family building moment.
Yes. And that's what I mean. I kind of mentioned that before, of like, you get to see those moments where they're just friends and they're dealing with the trauma and the things that have happened to them in the past.
Yeah.
Which we've never gotten to see before. It does a wonderful job of doing that before just insanity. And I think a lot of that insanity comes from, for me at least, and how frantic it all is because it is such a tight space that they are stuck in this tiny apartment.
Yeah.
And Ghostface,
a tiny apartment that like stops making sense at a certain point. It's like bathrooms connect rooms to hallways, and it's like they almost intentionally set up the geometry of like the main living area, but then the offshoots you don't see at all. So that as you're going, it's like, oh no, new spaces and hiding in corners, and it's really claustrophobic despite not being like that small.
Yeah, because I mean it's at least a 2 to 3 bedroom apartment.
In New York, which is insane.
But it feels so claustrophobic because, we don't see the full picture. And so you keep getting revealed of just like, oh, wait, there's a second door to the bathroom.
Right.
Like, so, and the fact that like they are all there and they've been there for a while, I would assume.
So how the fuck? Yeah.
And Ghostface is in the house with them.
So it's like, oh, no. Obviously somebody has either let him in, or he has been here the entire time. This is also my favorite way that it harkens back to Scream 4, where Jill and Kirby watch their friend get killed from across the way and Sidney runs in and sees it. Except this time it isn't a member of the film's main cast. It is secret building boyfriend, Danny, who's looking. I love his reaction so much. He's like, oh, fuck. Hey, motherfucker, I'll kill you.
And he does. But it's like it's one of those, he lives in the next hallway over. And so he tries calling Sam. He tries screaming across to them.
Well, it's the friendship moment of Danny is calling Sam and they're like, oh, this boy's calling you. And he's like, please.
Yeah, please just pick up.
Because from what we don't know, Quinn's a killer and that her death is being faked. So we're watching her just get fucking wrecked. And they're all just like, having a party because that's what Scream does. I also like how this is the party of the film.
Yeah.
The film doesn't really have the party. This is the closest we get. And the murder that happens there is the actual murder, not Quinn's fake. For the record, Quinn's murder is faked. But then as they are trying to escape into the next building where Danny lives, because he texts them pictures of Ghostface killing Quinn.
Yeah. And so then they all react. Ghostface bursts out of the room, chases them around for a bit. Half of them get out of the apartment and run down. Tara and Chad run out of there.
Knives are missing in the kitchen, which means that this has been planned, which is worse.
And so Sam uses the wood block that houses all the knives to just brain Ghostface.
They have to wear it's got to be the mask and then like a Cobra Commander metal helmet underneath, because the amount of times that they get blunt force trauma to the head and they're just like, nah, I'm fine.
They shake it off just a few minutes later. They barricade themselves in the bedroom, but it's like he is just kicking full force into that door.
Well, and Mindy has, to this point, now been stabbed.
Mindy's stabbed. Annika's been stabbed.
Which means that they're the last two across the bridge. And this is...
Which, my question is, why does Danny have this ladder just readily available?
I didn't question that. I just figured that he's like a handyman. Or like...
I guess, I don't know what he does, but...
He's got to be some sort of, building maintenance or like a construction worker or something. It made sense. He's rugged. He's wearing like a thermal textured shirt.
Right.
He's sexy.
He is. He whips this ladder out, stretches it across the way, and from window to window, and they start crawling across. And we get this because it's that thing of like, we have to leave somebody behind because they have to be able to brace the door.
Right.
And so you leave the two people who are bleeding and wounded.
Mindy's like, go. And she's like, no, you go.
And I'll be right behind you.
It is the scariest part of that isn't the death. It is the people Mindy has now made it across. Annika is on the ladder. She's halfway from building to building. Camera pans down. They're probably 6 stories in the air.
Yeah.
In the alley of brick floor and a fucking dumpster. And they show that dumpster a bunch.
Yeah, they do.
And she's on the ladder, and it's the reaction of the people across from the window when Ghostface finally gets into the room and walks up to the ladder.
And the way he walks up is so calm and collected. Like, he just walks on over there, and he takes a look at the situation, and he's just like, I don't need this knife to do this.
Yeah.
And it's the stab into the windowsill.
It's the mental inventory of what is the best way to murder this person in a way that will traumatize them. I can grab her and pull her back. Mm-hmm. And then he shakes that fucking ladder and she falls and hits her head on the dumpster. And I remember in the theater out loud going, oh shit. Because it was just like, that dummy. Because I think they use that practically.
I mean, they try and do everything as practically as they can.
Because it looks horrific.
And the sound editing for that is like
kind of wet.
Yeah.
It's just nasty.
And we've never seen something like that before. We've never seen like a long fall in these Scream movies that I can think of.
Right. And even if you do, up until this point, because the series has mostly been in the 90s and early 2000s, most of that is off camera. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you know what? Long fall. Oh, fuck.
Allison Brie's character in 4
falls onto the news van.
Yep.
But even that isn't like she falls. We don't see her body really take the brunt collision. You see her head crack.
Yes.
It dents on that fucking dumpster and she's just laying there. And it's Mindy's. She's a wonderful performer.
Yes, she is.
And she's just crying. And it's like, and he stands there and he picks that knife up, wipes it, turns and walks out. And it's like, this is what we keep coming back. It's just a home run every time of you have that mask, the way it catches the light, the way it looks, the robes, the way they flow. And it's just this insane person hunting these fucking people. And it's like, how are they going to get out of this situation? Mm-hmm. And then every time one of them doesn't. And it's just, it's so good.
Yeah,
The whole scene is so good.
Whittling it down. And then he makes that kill, and then he just picks up that knife and saunters on out of the room and disappears from their sight. And then it's just like, well, where is he going to show up next?
Right.
Like how did he make it in the first place? We are not safe anywhere at this point. Now, what that does do, and I've not really thought of this for whatever reason, because there's always like red herrings and things like that, is we can almost certainly see that Danny is not a Ghostface at that point, because he witnesses this thing. He's the one that draws their attention to it and things like that. But he is also like, Sam, if you're saying that you should not trust the love interest, then I'm going to respect that.
He's my favorite. I love that line delivery so much because he's just like, it is just like, it kind of plays with this weird theme of like what it means to be like a non-toxic dude of like, if this is what you need, I hear you.
Yeah.
And it's like, aw.
Because he doesn't come off as like a horror fan.
No.
And he doesn't come, I mean, he wasn't there for the events of Scream 5. Mm-mm. So all he's doing is he's listening to what she's saying and saying, okay.
You need me to go, I'll go.
Yeah. I will help you where I can. And if I need to step away, then I'll step away.
Well, another thing about that is that we have a better idea that he's not a Ghostface killer because we've seen his reaction. They didn't.
Right.
They saw the text message, and I mean, people are faking their fucking deaths.
Yeah.
So
that's what I meant is like, we know as the audience.
Because he's like screaming and in panic. I can't imagine looking across out of my window across the street and seeing somebody just get fucking butchered. Right. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And he has that ladder and he whips it out.
He uses it.
And he stretches that ladder that he whipped out all the way across the window.
That he did.
He's sexy.
Yes. That's when we also get the return of they talk about it in the commentary of like they weren't sure if this scene after that murder happens was going to work because it's, they're there standing on the side of the street. The cops are there to like cover the body in the alleyway. Officer Bailey, who it is known that he is Quinn's father. It is not known that he is Ethan's father. Right. And Quinn is the one whose death has been faked. So he's like, Officer Bailey comes out and he's like almost vomiting. Mm-hmm. He's so upset. And so it's like he comes out and has a moment with Sam and Tara. And then, which that on rewatch He has the line of, "You fuck with my family, you die."
Yeah.
And as he says it, he looks Sam in the face as he is saying that. It's just like he is just screaming it from the rooftops. He might as well be. But you don't think about it whenever you're first watching it because anybody could be a suspect.
Yeah. And she's like, let's team up.
And then, like, Kirby shows up.
Ethan shows up.
Ethan shows up first, and they're like, "Where were you?"
And he's like, I swear to God, I have an alibi.
Yeah.
I fucking swear to God.
And then Kirby shows up. She has some new information to give. And then Gail shows up. And it's just like four people back to back to back. And it does work as a scene.
It's the middle break of the
It's
the middle break of the video game. Mm-hmm. You got to go talk to all the people that you did side quests with, and then you know they all help you in the end.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And then Gail is like, "Hey, we're gonna call a truce, just like she did with Sidney in Scream 2.
Yeah,
I'm sorry for the book and what I've done. I'm here to help." And so then they end up at the shrine,
which is so fucking rad. The spray paint on the side of the building, the all of the memorabilia, the way the film projector is like situated to come out of the Ghostface's mask's mouth, like the spray painted mouth.
Yeah.
All the way down to like seeing all of the. It's a museum of things that we've been celebrating throughout this entire podcast, which is also crazy meta.
Yeah.
And it's, you walk through, you see like the TV, you see Kirby staring at a knife, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I got stabbed with this fucking thing by a guy who I thought loved me." And it's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It is the amount of things that are in there. And apparently all of that was recreated, because none of those props had been kept or saved.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So they had to go back through all of the Scream movies and frame by frame for different scenes, because they recreate all of Gail's books that we have not necessarily seen.
But heard, yeah.
But I mean, she has like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 books that she's written over the course of all this.
A lot of drawings of like Dewey, and there's like a drawing of Dewey's murder.
And apparently that's because they didn't have the rights to use pictures like directly from those movies. So they were like, well, how do we illustrate? And then they literally just illustrate.
Well,
like,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think it worked fine. I didn't question that
and
at all.
And it works from the idea of this is from Richie, who is obsessed with, because it's eventually revealed that it belongs to, this is Richie's collection.
Yeah, which is so funny because then you go back and you watch Richie see Dewey for the first time. We talked about this in Scream 5, but when he sees Dewey for the first time and his eyes are so wide open, and then you see the shrine and it's like, oh no, I get that. If I had a shrine, a Hey Arnold Helga shrine to this man and then see him in person, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like it takes place the shrine is built in this abandoned theater. Mm-hmm. And so it also kind of mirrors a bit of Scream 2, because Scream 2 ends in a theater.
Right.
It also begins in a theater. Mm-hmm. And so it's referencing back to that. You get, the knife that killed Casey Becker. You get the rope that they use to string up the principal's body, which is something we don't see in that movie.
No.
But it is there on display.
Yeah. There's a sweater of Stu's.
You have, yeah. It is insane the amount of detail and things that are in that scene, and we get these wonderful little character moments with Kirby talking about the knife, and we also get this in the lobby of the theater. We get a scene between the Carpenter sisters, and we finally get an answer for a question that I had, having not watched these in like over a year at this point, and where I'm like, they mention their mother a couple times in Scream 5. And it's like, I know it's only been 3 days, but like, where the hell is she? Your daughter was nearly murdered.
Another one is currently being hunted.
Why are you not back in town? And I don't have an answer for that in Scream 5. In this one, they're like, oh, well, once Sam talked to her about, that she knew that she was actually Billy Loomis's daughter. And so their mom cut her off, and so then Tara cut their mom off, and so they're just not on speaking terms because of these things. And it's like, okay,
you'd still think they'd come into like, hey, I know you're mad at me, but like you're my kid and you're about to get killed. One thing they set up in Scream 5 is that she's an AA, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, you know what? Maybe their mom is tied up in the assumed broom closet of the main thoroughfare hallway in the Mocker house.
She's probably in there.
But she's been there since the last one, and the last one was years before, so she's a skeleton.
Right.
So
I mean, she was surrounded by food though in that pantry. She could have eaten.
her hands are tied. She has no can opener.
Look, that's a good point.
I have no cans, but I must eat.
The other thing that Kirby reveals, because it's that thing of, well, we watched Kirby get stabbed the last time we saw her. How is she in this movie right now? And so she does talk about how she technically had died for 4 minutes, but contractually, when she signed on for Scream 4, she had it in there that she could not die. Like, they could make it look like she died, but canonically she needed to survive so that she could possibly come back later. So they finally took advantage of that and brought her back, which I am very happy about.
And that's the end of the discussion about your feeling about Kirby being back.
Okay.
We can't go through another days-long search for royalty-free, creepy violin music again. So you have to just be normal about it this time, bud.
I'm normal. Kirby.
That is definitely not normal.
That is the I'm normal of the least normal person.
I'm normal.
Like, you know, like I've said, Kirby works for the FBI. So then they're going to do a stakeout. They're going to figure out where Ghostface is. They're going to find him. They're going to tap his phone, or they're going to not tap his phone, but they're going to trace his phone.
This is to me the most direct parallel to 2, even more than the theater. It's walking around a giant plaza. The only thing that this sequence lacks is Dewey almost crippling an extra.
Yeah, which there is, I don't know if it was a deleted scene or if they just had written it originally where they were going to be running around and doing the same thing, tackling people who were on cell phones and things. And they were like, we're just doing it again. Let's not do that. So they're doing the stakeout. They're, you know, hiding out in a van next to this park.
Down by the river.
And Mindy gives the line of like, this is exactly how our uncle died. They're also sitting there. Chad and Ethan are eating Cheetos, which is a reference to Gail's cameraman in Scream 1 is in his news van eating Cheetos.
That's funny.
So they're walking around and they're tracing the call, and, you know, kind of like other things that we've talked about where these movies also show the difference in time and like technology and how we've grown and changed and gotten better and what have you, is like Mindy's like, yeah, Kirby, how are you planning on tracing this? Are you going to have to keep him on the phone for 10 minutes? Because like, we don't have that time. He never stays on the line. It's like, I can do this in 30 seconds. I just need him on the line for this long and then I can trace it. And so Kirby's tracing it, and it's like not anywhere close by like they thought. He's all the way across town. And Tara realizes, like, oh, is he at this address? Yeah, how would you know that? That's Gail's apartment.
Cut to my favorite scene in the movie, which Gail has moved on from Dewey's death and is dating this shredded underwear model.
Yes. Who I don't believe is even named in the film.
I don't think so.
I don't think you even see his face. He is kept, like, his face is in shadow most time he is there, or he is behind.
And it's like, it's hinted at that, like, he believes that this is a relationship, and Gail's just like, yeah, and like, whatever. Yeah. And then he is immediately murdered in this really neat kind of camera trick where she's on the phone and they point out that she's never had a Ghostface call, which is great. And I love seeing that for the first time, her reaction to it.
It's that thing that you don't necessarily think of until they say it out loud. And because he's just like, isn't it weird that we've never talked to each other before? Which I don't know how Cop Dad would know that. But anyway, so technically Gail has received a call from Ghostface in Scream 2. He calls Gail's in the scene where they're on the quad at the college. He calls Gail's phone, but Randy is the one who snatches the phone from her, and he picks it up. So we're finally getting an actual conversation between them.
And it's like, as she's on the phone with Ghostface appears deep in the background and like grabs her dude and like drags him out of sight
silently.
And it's like, oh, well, he's dead. He's dead immediately. And then it's her on the phone and they're kind of teasing each other. He brings up Dewey, which is awful. And she's just like, you're just another fucking copycat. You should you should think about how these things end for you people.
Yeah.
Like,
don't you know that I've done this before? And I kill people like you.
Yeah.
That's how this normally ends.
And then it's the same thing that we talked about with Sidney being such a fucking badass in 5, where she just comes up with this excellent way of hold please, hangs up the phone, redials.
Sidney does this in Scream 3. She does a similar thing. She doesn't do the hold please, because that is the funniest line, I think, in the whole thing, of just like, can you hold for a second? And Ghostface goes, what? And then it clicks off. And it's the first time that they've ever really caught him off guard like that. But Sidney does do a similar thing in 3 whenever she's at the mansion trying to find Roman. And so she calls the phone, that she hangs up and then redials the number that had called her. And so it rings like in the closet or wherever.
And as it rings, she puts, I think it's like 5 rounds into the door.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And then, of course, that doesn't work.
Yeah, but she was super excited, apparently, just to have this big action scene running around this apartment.
Yeah.
And because she's never really, she's had chase scenes with Ghostface, but it's always been like her and Dewey running around, at the college.
But this is a murderer chasing her with a knife in her apartment.
And they're just in like an open floor plan apartment.
It's very much the Ghostface attacking Casey in the beginning of Scream 1. It's a large place running and trying to hide.
You even get because I draw that comparison to whenever he throws the boyfriend in this, Gail's boyfriend's body, through that like bookcase. It's like Casey's boyfriend, or whenever the chair gets thrown through the back door, the glass shatters in a similar way.
She's stabbed. He is injured. She's stabbed with a piece of glass from a broken table that they fall through.
Yes.
And it's assumed for just that moment that oh no, they killed Gail. Music has swelled. Characters are reacting because Sam and Tara have now made it to that apartment. They're reacting. It's, oh, fuck, they finally killed Gail. And then it's, no, we got a pulse. And it's, oh, thank God.
And it's this little moment where it's kind of like, could this be a fitting ending to our character? But let's do it in a way that it's like, no, we have a faint pulse, so we could bring her back if we needed to.
Or at the end or the beginning of whatever one, it starts with a funeral.
Right.
Yeah.
And honestly, on this rewatch, I couldn't remember if she made it or not. And so I'm like, watching it, my eyes are just wide of just like, oh my God. And she gets stabbed with this huge piece of glass. And it's just like, okay, like, I guess this is it.
Every member of the main cast, and especially the new cast with Chad, they all have, and we'll get to that in this next sequence, they all have organs that are lined with lead.
Right. The only other thing that I really want to bring up here is this is just a thought that I had watching these, is they reference in this movie, they reference in Scream 5, the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and in different ways. And so, but I drew a comparison with the Star Wars sequels. They thought of those as they were kind of making them as, this will be kind of spoilers for the Star Wars sequels if anyone cares out there. But that Force Awakens was Han Solo's movie. The Last Jedi is then Luke Skywalker's movie, and that Rise of Skywalker would have been Princess Leia's movie.
Right.
Unfortunately, Carrie Fisher passes before that movie can be made, so they have to, do it the way that they did it and still try and give her her moment in that movie. Like, it still kind of is, but she's just not as big an impact as they wanted. But anyway, the comparison I'm making is that that's almost how this trilogy, if it had worked the way that they wanted it to, is Scream 5 then becomes Dewey's movie. Like, he has his big moments. He is the hero. He dies a hero's death. In this, Sidney doesn't come back. So Gail then becomes the lead legacy character. So it becomes her movie. She has her big scene with Ghostface. She could die. They could bring her back. But either way, it's like she's had her moment. And so now with the information that with Scream 7, Sidney is coming back. It's like, in a way, Scream 7 is going to be Sidney's movie.
Yeah. Which I like. I mean, tentatively.
Right. It's just an observation I had.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comparison, especially because, as explained within the movie itself, this thing follows a very specific formula, and it uses things like the MCU and Star Wars as a template, because they all do, because those were wildly successful.
And then they hatch a plan of how are we going to catch Ghostface? Oh, let's use the theater. Let's use the shrine to trap him there, get him in one location with all of us, and we will take him out finally.
Which is a plan. The actual trapping bits are like it's like the brainchild of the two cops. So it's Bailey and Kirby. But
how are you going to get there?
Which is my favorite scene in as far as my favorite scene is the scene with Gail in her apartment, but my favorite scene with Ghostface is the subway because it's just so effective.
Yeah.
And I also love that they've caught back up with Danny, the sexy boy that Sam is into, and he is on the subway with them, and they're like freaking out, and he's so confused. He's like, "What? What is happening?" And then it's the slow pan up because it's Halloween, and it's the slow pan up of 50 ghost faces in the train.
Yes.
It's like, oh no.
Which is, and it's, so you've got people who are dressed as Ghostface, which earlier in the movie, at some point, there's like a news report that's like, Ghostface is the number one, top selling costume right now because of, what's going on. And that's funny because just to touch on another thing that we've never really covered in these movies, but I think is important, is like where the Ghostface like mask and costume came from.
Yeah.
Because it is like it's a thing that existed before the Scream movie.
And I don't remember what it was called. I think it might have been called Screaming Ghosts.
So it's had a couple names, but it's done by
Fun World.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is the Ghostface mask itself is based off of Edward Munch's, I don't know how you pronounce his painting Scream, which everyone knows is like it's a person on a bridge and there's two approaching figures and the warped screaming face of this person right in front of the canvas. It's also kind of based on around the cover of Pink Floyd's The Wall, which also has a very screaming face that's kind of warped. And but it's first developed as a Halloween mask 1991 and 92 is what I have, and it's like you said from Fun World, and it was originally known as this is weird, the Peanut Eye Ghost.
That makes sense.
Because his eyes are shaped like peanuts.
He has a terrible peanut allergy as well.
Yeah, that is true. Which is why he needed the EpiPen in whatever bit we did.
We did a bit about an EpiPen. Right. Yeah.
But it is it's an actual thing that existed. And Fun World then still owns the rights to Ghostface as a character or as an iconography?
So it's because they use their mask unedited, unaltered in that Scream movie. They were then able to retain those rights to the likeness of that mask and combined with the robe. Now, they then call it Ghostface, which then gives them the rights to the name Ghostface. So now Scream is owned by, whatever production studio, currently Paramount. And Spyglass to an extent. But Ghostface and that fucking mask are owned by this Halloween mask company called Fun World. So if you want to use Ghostface, I'll give you two examples. If you want to use Ghostface, say as like a character in a video game, you can do what Dead by Daylight has done, which is use mask, similar likeness, and call it Ghostface. But do not reference Scream at all. It is not Billy. It is not Stu. It has nothing to do with Casey Becker or Sidney Prescott or any of the Roberts or Roman Bridger. No one. You cannot mention Scream at all. Because Ghostface, you only have to pay the one license. You pay the one license to Fun World, which is why if you go on Fun World's website, not only do you see the Ghostface mask and costumes, but you also see all of the Dead by Daylight masks as well and costumes because they own it all. Or you do what Mortal Kombat has done now that Ghostface is a character in that, where you see in the credits now that they've added this character, credits for Fun World and Paramount. Because not only do you have the Scream masks, you have to pay Fun World, but you also mention Billy and Stu by name. You reference things from the Scream movies. You have the phone call, all of those references. So you have to license the film as well. Yep. So it's just, I think that's the only example of that I know of.
Yeah.
Because Michael's mask is obviously the Shatner mask.
Yeah, we'll go into more of that later. I don't want to spend too much time on that for this conversation. But yeah, it's that they took a mask that already existed, they changed it enough to where it became a new thing.
But these people didn't change it at all.
No.
So, which I'm happy for, but for the production level, it's like, oh, maybe you should have.
To make the movie, they have to license a mask to use in the movie that made the mask famous.
How great would it be if the way they changed it in Scream 1 is that they gave the peanut-eyed ghost mask Eugene Levy's eyebrows?
That'd be good.
That'd be good. You could cock him when he's confused.
Yeah. But it means that so many people in the city are now dressed as Ghostface, and they are all over the subway train.
Everywhere. And
not only that, but it's Halloween. So we have a Michael Myers, we have a Jason, we have a Freddy, we have a Pinhead, it is every major slasher and horror movie icon.
And then also importantly, and I mentioned this in an episode before, but also importantly, we see a flash of somebody dressed as Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls.
As they go down the stairs, yeah.
Because that's Roger Jackson's other famous voice credit. Yes. Like his second most famous is Mojo Jojo.
Yeah.
So
you also have the directors and maybe the writers in the movie. They pass by in like the briefest of moments as they walk down those stairs, and you hear them off camera chanting "Evil dies tonight" over and over again.
And let's not get too much into that as well, but that's an excellent joke.
Yes. I think the train sequence is so effective because it is putting us, it is out in the open, it is in public, you are surrounded by people. How do you make this scary?
Yeah.
How do you make this like stalking killer work? And they do it very effectively.
You make 30 Michaels instead of one. You take Pinhead and put him in 9 rooms instead of the one. It is the scariest visual, and the panic on their faces. But then Mindy is separated from the main pack with Ethan. They get into the train, and slowly the power on the subway is flickering as they do, and the lights go out. And when they come back on, Ghostface has moved. There is one Ghostface in particular
that takes
the mask looks a little bit cleaner, and it's the robe is a little bit less Halloween-y, and it moves a little closer, and a little bit closer, and a little bit closer, and then she's stabbed. What I will say is that it is the least brutal stabbing. It's just one in the gut, but like, it's the lead up to it that makes it so memorable, because it really is. I left that theater taking that subway scene away, didn't watch that movie again for months, found out that my partner and roommate hadn't seen it. So I was like, oh, we got to see this movie. And cited, there's this awesome scene on the subway. And then it didn't let me down at all.
Yeah. It's very, very effective. And we, again, watch, the person who is our Randy stand-in now, who's given the rules, like disappointed in herself that, I got it wrong again.
I got separated. I did the things that you're not supposed to do. God damn it. Yeah.
Yeah. Her what would be her final line is "fuck this franchise."
Yeah. And then they exit the subway, make it to the shrine. Sam dismisses boyfriend. They get back in, set the trap, locks are locked. You have this scene with Tara and Chad, and they kind of have like it's
been this romance that's kind of been threaded through this whole movie of just like, hey, we're friends, we went through a traumatic thing, will they, won't they?
And then when they do, per the rules, they are immediately attacked.
Yes.
It is like no time at all, and they are attacked by then revealed 2 ghost faces at once.
And it's the first time we've really seen 2 masked ghost faces on screen together.
They do the knife wipe. After they stab that dude 40 fucking times.
Chad gets stabbed so many times, there's no way he should survive.
When we were watching this last, I told you, it was like, that is the bit that takes me the most out of the movie. Is like, he's getting stabbed and he like looks up and he gives him like a, go, you'll be fine, survive, smile, and but he's like, there's no way anybody has that happen to them and they do anything. You're probably dead within the first 5. Or at least in too much of a state of dying to be able to react to the real world, and that's always just felt strange to me.
Yeah, it's too far a stretch.
Yeah, especially because, spoiler, he then survives.
Yeah,
gives a shaky thumbs up off a hospital bed, and it's like, oh, fuck off. Yeah. And like Tara runs up and like, oh my god, you made it, and it's like, he can't hear you, hun. He has lost 40 gallons of blood. Any amount of blood that was in his body is in the floor of that theater,
and any that he just owned.
Yeah, any of the blood bags that he has. They raided his fridge.
Yeah, he should not have survived.
They raided his pantry and found Sam and Tara's mom.
We do our big reveals.
But there's a fake reveal first where it's Detective Bailey has called and is like, Kirby has been kicked out of the FBI because of mental instability. Which I believe that's a lie.
It's a lie, because how else would she have access to that van and all the equipment that they used for the trace?
or a gun.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and it's revealed because it's immediately, oh, fuck, right, we can't trust anybody. That's the way this franchise operates. It's the way the world operates. We can't trust anybody. And then the reveal of we can't trust anybody. Oh, yeah, because that piece of information that made us all just question everybody again was given to us by one of the killers.
Yes.
Who is the only one not currently ghost-faced. He's in normal clothing, walks in, and the reveal of my son, Richie, loved all this stuff. And it's like the dad who's like, and I don't get any of it. I don't get these memes. I don't get my kids. But he loved it. And now I'm going to fucking kill you because you killed him while he was making his movie.
It is like he's been pretty on it this whole movie. And then immediately following the unmasking, he just starts chewing the scenery. It's amazing.
What it reminds me of is Mrs. Loomis, because she has been this completely other character, and then it is like crazy fucking eyeballs, like you hurt my son. And it's like,
how have you been holding it together this whole time?
Where did this come from? And it's great, and he's there, and the kids are there, and they're all taunting them, and they've been injured. So like Sam and Tara have both at this point been like rocked. Chad's been fucking stabbed. No one knows where Mindy is. They shot Kirby. Officer Bailey shot Kirby, so it's assumed that she's dead. Again. And so, yeah, it's fucking, this is of all the climaxes of these movies so far, this is the part of Mindy's speech that comes the most true, which is it is so much bigger than it has been before because now there's 3 killers and only 2 survivors. They like circle them and like all of the, what is it? Kirschners is their actual last name? Kirsch. And they're all surrounding them and like jabbing knives at them and cutting like that first couple layers of skin. And the Carpenter sisters have bricks to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's like, they're fucked. They're dead.
And I mean, they're running around the theater. They're climbing up the scaffolding into the second, the balcony seats. They're dropping down. And so we get this thing where Tara slips and she's falling from the balcony and Sam is holding her. And Ethan is below and Quinn, who has been revealed to be alive again, so each sister like has a killer who is after them, and they share the moment of like, no, Sam, you have to let me go. Like in this case, physically, you need to literally let me go, and
which normally I would think is a little ham-fisted, but it works. Yeah, I think using a visual metaphor for the thematic emotional metaphor throughout the entire movie usually gets an eye roll because it's like doing it visually is like, yes. Thank you. But this one actually, it works fairly well. Yeah. Especially because the way she lands on him with that knife, Tara, is just so fucking gross. Yeah. Oh, and then Quinn gets shot.
They do the shoot him in the head immediately.
Which is that's just another sheet pull. It's another, oh no, we know. Yeah. We don't have to do the dialogue about this. If you've seen the last one, you understand the importance. We're going to go ahead and do it. Yeah. One thing that we didn't mention is that Sam is still seeing the ghost of Billy Loomis. And he is now through the glass case that houses his knife, robes, and mask. He is speaking to her.
Kind of egging her on of like, do the thing that we were born to do.
Yeah. Killing's fun. You know it's fucking fun. Go ahead and do it. Which makes the climax of this where she's taken the mask. Officer Bailey, now all 3 of his children are dead. And he is like, losing his fucking mind, and she is now called. And this is the time where our hero, once again, because Sidney's done this in the past, is
dressed as Ghostface, using the voice, making the call.
Right. And so we get to that point where the hero's doing it, but this time it's different. This time it's not like, oh, I'm just doing this as thematic revenge. It's like she takes the time. She does the thing. Well, she does the ghost face thing. She becomes that for a moment. In the past, it's felt like emulation. This feels like I am this now. Yes. And it's pretty good. It's a pretty creepy moment. And then just, again, something about her and these Kirsch men. She just absolutely...
Yeah, she stabs him like 31 times.
It's horrible.
And finally in the eye and finishes it. After getting like the approval of Tara of just like, well, yeah.
Yeah, Tara's like, go for it. What do you think I'm going to be like? No, stop.
Have you just forgotten what's happened over the last 3 days?
Well, because that's, I think, a trope, right? Is like, well, no, don't become them.
Right.
Like politically, I think the term is when they go low, we go high. But it's like, well, that only works with moral debate. It doesn't really work when these people have killed friends of ours.
Yeah, and they will just keep coming back, as we have seen.
Right. We watched Gail almost die 20 minutes ago. Like, no, kill this guy, which is nice. And more camaraderie, and it's the core four. You leave this theater, and Mindy comes running up. She's like, did I miss the reveal again? Yeah. What the fuck?
Which this breaks the record for the most survivors for any Scream movie. It's 7.
It's all of them, with the exception of the new characters. The new characters are the only ones that die. Gail comes close.
Mindy says earlier, just like the new characters show up to either be the killers or to be cannon fodder. And those are literally what happens.
Yeah.
So she is right in this one where she got it wrong the last time. And Mindy's last line is like, "Oh, we all survived. Oh my God, it's a twist. It's a twist on a twist." Like she's excited about what it is.
She's excited, but she also is like losing it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh fuck,
she keeps missing the thing.
She keeps missing the thing, but she's losing it in the sense that even like her celebrations of like being alive are like steeped in the meta of what's happening. And it's like, oh, don't go too far down the hole. Like, and they're all surviving and celebrating. And Chad holds up the 4 because of core 4. And they're like, oh yeah.
Tara finally, agrees with it of like, oh, this thing that's been annoying me this whole time. It's like, yeah, we're the core 4. Okay.
And then that final reveal that Sam has taken Billy's mask with her.
Yeah.
And it was this awesome, like, well, what does this mean? And
but then she takes it out of her bag and she drops it on the ground.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, that is not me.
Which is great.
And they walk away. And it's this wonderful little character moment, wonderful little sister moment as well between them. Credits roll. We get, for the first time in this franchise, we get an after credit scene, but it's literally just Mindy saying, not every movie needs an after credit scene. Cut to black.
Which is very funny.
And that's the end of our time with the Carpenter sisters. Probably.
Yeah. And this could be a mild discussion, but it is disappointing to me that we live, at this time where so much, to me, obvious stuff has become so negatively politicized that, you can, and this isn't a political show. This isn't what we do here.
Right.
But if you're unaware, Melissa Barrera, it is widely assumed that Melissa Barrera, after posting pro-Palestinian content on a social media platform, was then fired from the franchise by Spyglass Entertainment.
Yeah. The producers had seen her comments and taken them to mean to be anti-Semitic.
Yes.
And so she was let go in November of 2023.
And
then the following day,
Jenna Ortega, who had already been rumored to be like barely involved because of Wednesday and Beetlejuice, things that she was going to be recording, she's apparently on her way out the door anyway. So it's like, no, fuck this. And she slams it on the way out.
Yeah.
Then shortly after,
the director, who was originally Christopher Landon, who had done Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. He did Happy Death Day. He did Freaky. He was originally the director for this. He dropped out because they were obviously having to rewrite everything, redo everything. And so he finally was just like, nope, I'm out of this as well.
Chad and Mindy's actors both leave.
And then it's finally revealed or announced that Neve Campbell is coming back.
Right.
She's returning as Sidney. Kevin Williamson, so the original writer of Scream 1 to the majority of 4, he would be directing Scream 7. They're still using a script from Guy Busick, and in the Radio Silence, the directors of 5 and 6 are coming on as executive producers. So still got some of the,
It's just, I would have liked to have, it's disappointing that we spend this time and we spend this energy getting to know the people that we get to know only for it to mean nothing, and it has nothing to do with the story.
Right.
We could have gotten meaning from the story. We get the meaning from the world around us, and for reasons that I have problems with. And so it's just, I don't know. It's a disappointing note to end the franchise with where we are now.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, now we're never going to get this, closure. We'll never find out how many cans Sam and Tara's mother were able to eat out of the pantry before she passed because she had been tied there for years.
Right. That is a real shame that we won't get that.
In the Mocker house, even though that closet door was opened during Scream 5 and she was not in there, they hid her behind a false wall.
Which is a reference to Scream 3 whenever they're in the mansion. Anyway. But yes, we do have like a release date, a tentative release date that I'm sure has gotten pushed a couple times for Scream 7. But that is a February of 2026 now.
Wow.
So we've got a little bit of time. They just started shooting, from what I understand. They've just made those announcements very recently. And it does leave us in an odd place. But overall, I think the Scream franchise is one of the single strongest horror franchises, slasher franchises that has ever been made.
Yeah.
End to end, I think they're all very watchable, very enjoyable, and sometimes perfect films.
If you measure a franchise in its peaks and valleys of its best and its worst, the best of this franchise is the best of the best. Mm-hmm. It's in my top 5 of all time. It's widely regarded as like a perfect opening. You've got Wes Craven, who's this genius who visualizes what could make it great and enacts that, and it's so well done. And then even the valleys, which most people consider to be somewhere in 3 and 4, are the weaker of all of them, and those are still great. They're even the boring parts of them that are like, well, we've lost sort of the thread of how these stories play out. It's still fine. It's still good. And so, yeah, I would say that of all of the franchises that we will go over, this one's probably the easiest to rewatch because I'm looking at some of the franchises we'll have to then rewatch later on as we discuss them, and I'm dreading it. But this one I never dreaded. I was always excited to watch these again.
Exactly. I'm glad we started here with this one. I think it has allowed us to not only explore this franchise, but explore a lot of the slasher genre that we're going to be covering in the coming, episodes, the coming years. And we're going to kind of, we've said it before, but it's like this show is going to we're still figuring it out, the format, the framing, the way that these episodes run out and play and the structure of everything. And so it's only going to get stronger, I think, from here. But I'm very happy with the franchise that we chose to kick this whole thing off. We
needed a strong franchise as we figured out what we were doing, because if we were doing this to like Critters, that would have been terrible.
Yeah.
Because we would have had to have figured out our framework on the back of a terrible series of films. There's a couple of good ones, and then it would just be like, well, this one also sucks. So here we go.
It ends with like a couple things where I'm like, well, I don't even know if I consider that a movie. Like, it's real bad.
I love everything, and we've talked about this before. I love everything about it. I love all of the performances are great. I don't leave those movies going, that guy sucked. What was wrong with? They're all good. It's like even to my mind, some of the weaker performances, like Mark Kincaid, Patrick Dempsey's performance in Scream 3 is like, it's fine.
I think he's great in that. I think, and he's rumored to be possibly in 7, which I would love to see.
Yeah.
I love to see returning characters from things where it's like, oh, it's not just a thread that we've left.
Sidney's kids are the killers.
Yeah. Sidney's, anyway, I don't know what is rumor and what's true and anything like that. So I don't want to get too much into speculation, but I am like tentatively excited for where we go next. I'm interested to see how, especially with bringing Kevin Williamson back into the fold, where does he take the franchise that he hasn't had a real hand in for the last 2?
Yeah. Do you have a rank of these 6 films?
Like, yes and no, because it's that thing of like, it's kind of tough to rank something like this where I love so many of them so much. With other franchises, it's like, oh no, it's easily in the Fridays, it's these 2 movies are the best and these 3 movies are the worst and everything else in the middle is a wash. This is like Scream 1996 is perfect.
Yep.
It probably sits at number 1 for most everybody. And Scream 3 is my weak one. That's the one that I care for the least.
Yeah.
And it sits at the bottom
After
of the
these
list.
rewatches, I would say I agree with that. I think if I had to give it a definitive ranking, it's pretty simple. It's 1, 5, 2, 6, 4, 3.
Okay. And I am back and forth between like Scream 4 and Scream 2 swapping places at position 2.
Okay.
And then Scream 5 and 6 swapping for whatever that below that would be.
Understood. And I think that I think I hold 5 at such high regard because this is where I started the journey. And it's where I started a lot. It's not where I just started watching these movies. It's where I started a new swath of interests, a new swath of social life. So it's been a lot given credit to Scream 5 for me.
No, that's a good point. And that makes a lot of sense. And my rewatches of it is I think it's phenomenal. I love what they've done with it. And so I'm always eager to see what they do with this franchise because it is a voice for what the horror genre is doing at any given time.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that as we leave this franchise in the rear windshield of the third channel, I would say I have 2 asks. The first ask is please don't bring Stu Macher back. Mm-hmm. And then also Fun World, please make a neon green stab mask and sell it.
That'd be nice.
That'd be cool because I collect these masks and I'd like one of those. So those are my. Do you have anything to ask the franchise, both creatively or productively in any way?
You know how like in a lot of these franchises, especially because this one is such strongly about the idea of a franchise, we get a lot of like spin-off movies or origin movies or things like that. So if we could just get like just a Kirby specific film that's just about her.
Ty, quick, hit a button.
And maybe
Quick.
like I'm...
Thanks for tuning into the Third Channel podcast. Please, if you have the time, rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast apps.
You can follow us on social media at Third Channel Podcast, and you can find me online at thatdrosenberg.
You can also reach out to us at thirdchannelpodcast@gmail.com, where we check every message we swear. Third Channel is hosted by PJ Minette
And Derek Rosenberg. Theme song and audio engineering by Fly Guy Ty.
The logo designed by Bell DeVelco.
Episode artwork by Nathan Walkington.
Keep it tuned right here to the Third Channel for all things horror. And remember, don't touch that dial.